Welcome to the Address Mechanics Planning Your Trip webinar. I'm Lois Rita Rossi, an industry consultant and president of High Rock Strategies. And today I'm joined by two of the best address mechanics and mail industry experts, Mark Fallon of the Berkshire Company and Adam Collinson of Gray Hair Software. We prepared an interactive dialogue for today's session, and we welcome your questions throughout the webinar. Please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to post your questions. Mailers experienced significant postage rate increases the last 2 years, and we will all likely experience a postage rate increase in July of 26. With increasing costs, mailers need to maintain correct addresses to maximize efficiency and minimize the cost of returned mail and undeliverable mail. And the best place to insulate against those postage rate increases is with better quality addresses. The mail piece is the vehicle that companies use to communicate with customers, members, prospects, dealers, franchisees. Think of the address as the tires that move your vehicle. And just like a car, it's important to perform regular maintenance. And as you plan for a major trip, you need to make sure everything is running correctly. And the last thing you want to do is see that low oil light or that tire pressure light. And think of gas as the equivalent of postage. You need to make sure you have enough gas to get to your destination. Everyone knows how to mail a letter, but not necessarily the most efficient way to do that. So most drivers still understand that they still need a mechanic who knows what's going on under the hood to ensure that they have a car that's well running and will perform for the long term. So today, Mark and Adam are your address mechanics, and they're going to share strategies to keep your mail running smoothly. So let's jump in. So Adam, as we think of mail as a concept to a journey, to a destination, to that mailbox moment, what are the necessary steps for pre-trip planning?
Well, certainly the first thing is to make sure you have a car that's going to run. It's kind of like you walk up to your car to start with, and you can immediately see, it's like, do I still have 4 tires on the car? Are any of them flat? It's kind of, you can do that with an address as well. It's like you look at an address and go, this is complete garbage. This is going to be a problem right off the bat. But really, the first thing is, okay, let's check the tires. We'll say that's called the equivalent of running CAS. So the CAS software checks, validates, and standardizes the address against USPS standards. If it's good, we're all set. We're past that check. But if not, what is the issue? And even if there appear to be good CAS-coded addresses, there's also the question, is there something else about that address that I need to be aware of? Like, is the tire actually properly inflated, or does it only look like a good one? Or more extreme, do I have the wrong type of tires for the journey? In which case, I have the potential for something really disastrous to happen. So if you don't have a good address and the right postage, best case, your journey is going to take longer and cost more than it needed to. Worst case, absolute worst case, is not that you don't make it there. It's that you have violated postal or industry specific regulations that could result in tickets, fines, penalties, and in some situations, even potential jail time. Maybe you get off with a warning the first time, but still, in any case, your journey was not smooth. And sometimes with time sensitive material, those delays mean you missed the purpose of your journey. You missed your flight or that once in a lifetime concert. So you missed the opportunity and the purpose of that mailing or that use of that address, which may not even have been mail related, but other services. So again, the first level is run it through CAS. The results are like telling you right off the bat, do I have the 4 tires? Is one of them flat? Is one of them have the pressure low? Any of these means that you could have a problem with your journey before it even starts. You want to do what you can to ensure you reach your destination, get there safely, timely, efficiently, and preferably at the lowest cost. Unfortunately, that is where a lot of businesses stop. But with CAS and the other tools, you have a lot of additional processes and data points. It's kind of like all the lights on your dashboard and displays. It tells you all the extra information of what's going on inside your vehicle that you can't just see just by looking at it. So first thing beyond just basic with CAS, and it's already incorporated with CAS, is you also get DPV processing to further identify types of addresses and types of address deficiencies. These could be from low risk issues like, okay, it's a missing secondary or an invalid house number, to bigger issues like, we don't recognize this street, or this zip is it completely invalid. Do you have the exact location for your destination, or just the building, street, or city for your trip? In any case, if you don't have it exact, you're likely to need help from the locals to get you to where you want to go. Same thing with the mail piece. You're going to need help from the carriers to figure out where it needs to be delivered or if it can. Your risk there is a wasted trip. So DPV tells you this additional information. They also have additional indicators to identify special address types. Some are important to many businesses. Some are only important to certain businesses and certain industries due to specific regulations that are unique to those industries. The biggest one that hits the most are what we kind of refer to as non-physical addresses, which include PO boxes, PBSAs, CMRAs, and a couple of others. Is this an address that actually has something there? Can you even get there? Will you find what you are expecting when you get there? So that's not always going to be the same. Some addresses that's true, some addresses that's not. Some flags identify addresses with high risk of various types of fraud as well. But not all special addresses are specifically flagged. So in some cases, mailers need to know how to detect them. It's not find a flag, look at it, good. It's look at a certain field, look for certain values. One example of this, just a simple one, go post addresses. These are USPS parcel lockers. So like a destination is restricted to only certain types of vehicles, trucks only, no cars allowed. With a go post address, only packages are allowed, no letters. It's also one of the examples of a non-physical address. It's good for delivery, an address to be used for delivery of packages, but if you go there, you're not going to find the person that ordered the package. It's not where they actually are located. I also like to point out and mention that you also have the DPV vacant flag. Nothing worse than traveling to a destination to get there and turn around because the destination is no longer there. They closed. They're not there anymore. Oh, that was a complete waste. Or maybe they are still there, but something else has changed over time. You know, zip and zip plus 4 information changes on a regular basis, but also streets get renamed, city boundaries change, or even the destination gets remodeled. So then now the entrance is further down the hall, further down the street, or around the corner from where you are used to it being previously. Changes over time drive the need for refreshes. Refresh your addresses. You have to maintain them. CAS, along with LaxLink, SweetLink, help to do this. Just like with your tires, air is not the only issue. They wear down over time. They need to be monitored for when there are changes are needed in order to maintain performance and safety. Addresses age and change over time. From relatively minor things, the zip plus 4 happens all the time, not a big deal, to street names, okay, that can be a bigger issue, to full, everything has changed, like, okay, well, I need to make that update within a year, or now these pieces are no longer deliverable, or to bigger issues of, okay, yeah, this address is now vacant, it's completely been destroyed or rebuilt, remodeled, something. One last one before I hand it back. Another one I like to bring up is the fact that the other part of everything changes is the data changes. The USPS will make more information available at different times. So one of the new things that have come available is no stats reason codes, one of which is called a drop flag, which is now more available than it used to be. The USPS made it available through more of their processes. What this is mail that the USPS does not handle the final delivery to the entity. So they actually have to hand it off to a third party. This could be as simple as the front office of a complex. It's kind of like some parking garages where you have to hand your keys to the attendant. You are trusting they are an attendant. They're not just going to steal your car, but they're going to protect your car from getting stolen or from getting damaged. But it's outside of their hands. So no stats drop flag is one of those situations where there's a higher risk for fraud because there is this unknown third party between your mail piece, the USPS, and the recipient.
So Adam, so much goes into CAS and pre-trip planning to really make sure that we're managing addresses effectively. So Mark, what do we need to do before we plug that address into a GPS system and begin a mail journey? You're muted, Mark.
See, this is what happens when you practice good webinar etiquette and mute yourself, right? And that's why you know it's live. One of the places that I always drive my car to is good restaurants. And I like to try new restaurants all the time. But I need to make sure that the restaurant is where I think it is, right? Is it still there? Has it moved? And I need to know that before I start my journey. Why would I go to someplace where the restaurant used to be to get the new address and then drive straight forward, right? And that is where NCOALink comes into play. NCOA and NCOALink and Move Update have been a requirement with the Postal Service since 1997. If you're mailing, full service, pre-sort, or any type of discount, you're supposed to be doing Move Update. And it just makes sense. So unless this new address is one that you can't get to, for example, they moved out of the country, in that case, you're going to cancel the trip, right? You want to make sure you know where they've gone to. And even if you found out that they moved until you got to their address, you need to make a note of that change. So let's say I went to the wrong place. There's a sign that says, hey, we've moved down the street. I make a note of that. So that way in the future, I don't make that mistake again. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in this presentation. But the final preparation, in addition to loading it into my GPS, is making sure I have a good full service intelligent mail barcode, an IMB, and I've created a mail.dat because these will provide me a reverse GPS. It will tell me where I currently am in relative to my destination, but also where I've been. And it keeps a record of my entire journey for me. So with NCOALink, IMB, and mail.dat, now I have all the information to start the trip.
Great. So we have all the steps in place and we know the critical nature of that mail.dat and people having to look things up. Oh, what was really in that mail.dat that got received by the post office? But Adam, can you share how do mailers get feedback from the Postal Service, that their mail is on a smooth journey once they turn it over and those files are uploaded through the gateway?
Okay, yeah. So first, now we've made sure we got a good address. We've made sure we've got the current address. So we think everything should be a smooth journey. We can get the first feedback from the USPS is going to be through informed visibility, referred to as IV in most cases. But you can also jazz that up and get a little bit more information using informed delivery. So this is tracking information as the pieces go through the USPS's system. At the BMEUs, you'll get initial entry scans and pallet scans. It's like, great, whoever I had printing my mail has indeed dropped it off. I've got confirmation. The USPS has it. It's on its way. But then we also get you get pallet scans and tray scans at the RPDC. You get tray scans at the LPC. I know there's a lot of acronyms going on here. Then we got the SNDC and DDUs, more pallet scans, tray scans, but also P scans, again, through IV. And now this is where we also start getting some of our ID information. And informed delivery, the ID. So we got ID and IV. It's always fun. The ID email, you get click-through reports. So okay, they've seen it. They're already looking for it. They're looking for the piece. For the piece, you get the out for delivery to the recipient scans. It's like, all right, it's getting delivered. I can coordinate things. And then all of a sudden after that, you see another scan. You see the carriers have identified the pieces as potential redirects. First flag that there is something going on with this piece. It had to get redirected. Hopefully it's just getting forwarded to a new address, but it's possible that it's been flagged for return to sender. So That's the first part of information.
So we have a comment from the audience, and I would like our mechanics here to validate that. So we have a comment that the difference between a 9-digit zip code and a 4-digit zip code is potentially mail gets delivered 1 day sooner. And so the person who posted this is sort of surprised how many business mailers are still using 5-digit zip codes as opposed to 9-digit zip codes. And whether that's printed or it's all in the IMB, I would love to know what your opinion is on delivery timing and use of a full 9-digit zip code.
Well, I think it's actually one step further, right? I think Adam's going to agree with me. It's the 11 digits, right? It's the DPV, right? So the Postal Service, they started off with zip codes in 1963. This is great. Let's see who can guess all the
We're
years,
going
right?
to
But
guess all the years too.
oh, absolutely. 1963. Then in I believe it was 1992, the 4 digits was created. So it only took almost 30 years to improve it. And then when the full service intelligent mail barcode came out, they went all the way down to the delivery point. So the 5-digit zip tells me the region, the 4 digits, the area on the route, and then the last 2 digits, my actual delivery point. And yes, using the entire delivery point first, it validates it's an actual address that the Postal Service delivers to, right? That's the first thing it does. It says, yes, this is an actual address. But then you're able to apply that full service IMB. So it goes, as Adam said, if you were listening to what Adam said, it's pallet scans, it's tray scans. It's not till it gets to the route that it has to be run through a final mail piece scan. So it's being moved in big chunks. Now, if you don't do that, well, it has to go through a second pass, right? It has to go someplace where it can look up the address and validate it. Now, the Postal Service, fortunately, is very automated. Their machines run at around 30,000 pieces an hour, slightly faster than Adam and I can run around the block. But it still has to take a detour. And the whole thing we want to do is not take detours. Adam, anything I got wrong there?
No, I absolutely agree. And I mean, the other part is by having the good quality addresses, like I said, you can bundle, they get bundled together. So you also get better discounts. But as a
Mm-hmm.
result, yeah, through the more you have as far as the full 11 digit, the more all that mail goes into a single tray, and the USPS can go, oh, well, this tray is going all the way there. So I can just keep it on a route all the way there and not have to send it through 3, 4 steps. So it is absolutely going to get there faster as well because it takes less handling, less handoffs.
So how does tracking help with address quality, Adam, to build upon that?
It's kind of interesting, especially recently. I mean, like I just mentioned, first off, it's the first flag that says something happened. It's being redirected or forwarded. So you have that information right off that to give you a heads up. But then when you're actually investigating address quality issues, there's been something that's been coming up more recently. Is that sometimes the piece and generally others weren't actually undeliverable or weren't actually an issue. It's just that, well, we'll say they got some wrong directions. So they gave some bad advice. And so the IV data can show if it and other pieces kind of got off the expected path at like the same time and location and for the same reason, kind of indicating the problem may not be with the piece, but with the handling. So it can actually, the tracking data, gives you initial heads up, but then in the investigation can help you identify, well, is it really a problem I had, or was it something else that caused the issue?
So Mark,
Lois,
Adam shared all the expected scans or the mile markers or the things that we know that the post office is looking for and providing data points on. What other types of detours or breakdowns may occur once it's in the hands of the Postal Service?
and I also want to note somebody had raised their hand, and Frank, Adam, and I both knew you would raise your hand at one
There
point.
you go.
So there it is. He did put it in there. The visibility and accuracy are tied together to promote the handling and movement of the mail piece and predict receipt. 100% correct, Frank. That's exactly, what we're trying to do here, right? Put those together, keep the mail piece together, make it visible, make sure people know you're going there. So the restaurant, right? When I use, an app to get my reservation, they ask me, "Are you going?" Wouldn't it be great if it just saw that I was going there? And that's where informed delivery and informed visibility come into play. So, what are the other, potential bumps in the road, right? And the first is, if you're using, remember we just talked about if you use a full service IMB that has a delivery point validation, you bypass a lot of the steps, right? And the problem may not be found until you get all the way to the delivery unit, right? The delivery sorting center facility or the DDU, the delivery unit. So, and sometimes the issue may not even be found until the carrier touches the mail piece. And this is where the carrier is so essential to this entire process. So the first thing the carrier may note on the mail piece is a known move. The carrier knows the person's moved and they know there's an address on file. Or they may know the person has moved and the forwarding order expired. You'll see FOE on the mail piece. The carrier knows they've moved and they know there's a new address, but they aren't going to forward it anymore. Or they may know the person left and didn't leave an address, and that's when you'll see MLNA, moved and left no address. The worst one to see, at least in my opinion, I'd love to hear Adam talk about this, but it's ANK, which can mean a lot of things. It's supposed to only mean the addressee doesn't live at the address. So I receive mail here a lot for people who have never lived at this address. I know who I bought the house from. It's not them, and they were here for 30 years, and it's nobody I'm related to, and I hand those back, ANK. They may know that the person is deceased, or be told that. That isn't something that's kept in a log, but they may know that. Or Adam talked about this really early on, that the building is vacant or that address doesn't exist anymore. And if you live, especially in a city, there are addresses that were there yesterday and they aren't there today, or that the building is vacant.
Absolutely.
So there's a question that
Yes, you want to respond? We have a question.
Yes. So AC has a question. Is a full service IMB handled differently with a commingled pre-sort vendor? So a commingled pre-sort vendor is when you don't have enough volume, you bring your mail to a third party. They have the same types of sorters as the Postal Service, and they commingle your mail with other folks. If you already have on a full service IMB, the vendor in most cases will use that IMB and they will scan it and upload it into their mail.dat. So the barcode doesn't change, but the mail.dat does. If you haven't put on a full service IMB, they will spray one on for you and add that to the mail.dat.
And in some cases, if through your processes you weren't able to generate the full 11-digit barcode, what some service providers have is they'll have extra processes that they can potentially run that name and address through and be able to get uplift. So maybe through your processes, you couldn't get to a full 11-digit, but they were able to do the extra processes, get it up to the full 11-digit, get that extra discount qualification, and get it in with the other 5-digit.
And Frank is trying to get us to jump ahead by talking about ACS. So Frank, hang on, brother. Hang on. We're going to get there for you. We're going to get there.
So I have a question. So, Mark explained about how the carriers have all this kind of rich information that gets into the postal system in various ways with hand scribbles and eventually Nixie labels and a variety of means. But Adam, is the information different depending on where and when it's entered into the Postal Service and how it's reported back to mailers?
Yes, definitely. The information is different, both in terms of what it means and the level of confidence in the information. For example, Mark just mentioned, carriers can identify a piece as UAA because the address is vacant. Earlier, I mentioned that, one of the DPV flags is the DPV vacant flag. So yes, in both cases, the carrier is who initiates the setting of the DPV vacant status. But with the DPV vacant flag, it doesn't get set until the address has been vacant over 90 days. Because the USPS has basically learned if it's been vacant over 90 days, odds are it's going to be vacant for a long time. It's also one of those things of that data is only refreshed once a month, and it takes time for that data to get built. So the DPV vacant flag could be 1 to almost 2 months out of date. But the carrier, when they're indicating vacant on the mail piece itself, they can do that day one of when it was vacant. And the other big difference is when they do it, when the carrier does it, it's associated with that name and the address. The DPV vacant flag is only associated with the address. So if you have the DPV vacant flag, but no carrier identified vacant, you may just be mailing to who just moved in. But if you have both the DPV vacant and the carrier vacant, for the same name, this is the person that is no longer at that address. But at least the address is good, just not currently occupied. On your journey, it's kind of like first the USPS has some automated operations with their PAR system. It's designed to detect actual changes of addresses when people have moved, try and detect it early and automated so that the piece gets routed to its proper destination sooner. But the matching logic in that process is very tight. It's like NCOALink. It is only done on letter size mail. So the rest comes down to the carriers, just as Mark mentioned. They use their knowledge. They're able to make additional matches that the other processes didn't. I always use this one example. One of my credit cards has my last name spelled wrong. This is very much more appropriate given our theme of driving in cars. My wife and I get our new cards at the same time. Hers is correct. It says their last name is Collinson. For me, they took out the N. My last name is Collision. So if they ever try and run my name through NCOALink, it's not going to make a match. It goes through PARS. It's not going to make a match for when I move. The carrier probably is going to get a chuckle and will make the match and get my mail piece routed onto the right place. So the carriers have a lot of this extra knowledge. And so it's one of the things that people miss a lot with a lot of deficient addresses. The vast majority still get delivered. It's because the carriers and clerks can figure it out. So I'm going to use Mark's been mentioning restaurants. Imagine you meeting someone for lunch at Main Street Deli, and you're told the address is 101 Main Street. But when you get to 101 Main Street, it doesn't exist. It's a vacant lot or it's a laundromat. By luck, the local mail carrier is walking by, starting his route, and you ask for help finding Main Street Deli. And he says, "Oh, yeah, I know this area. Main Street Deli? Yeah, that's not at 101 Main Street. It's at 110 Main Street." It's on its way, so he walks you down to the deli, holds the door open for you. Great. Your journey is complete with only a minor delay. But if you think back to, well, where did you get that invalid address? In this case, on a mail piece, it's the mailer. So the downside of the piece got delivered is that the mailer saw the piece got delivered using that deficient address. There's no feedback back to them for the correction. So what are you going to do? You're going to use that address again. So just because a deficient piece got delivered doesn't mean that you should not try and correct those at some point. After all, at some point, you're going to have a different carrier who is on the route and doesn't necessarily know where that correction is. It also is an issue because you could end up with having the wrong address. If they ever moved, well, you're not going to find the change of address match to NCOA because you're running the wrong old address. For me, what I do to understand is when the USPS equipment or the carrier determines the piece is not deliverable as addressed or not at all. and yet the mailer has requested no information back. This scenario drives me crazy because that means you're going to keep mailing to these wrong addresses. It's especially true for marketing mail pieces, where the default for UAA mail is to simply dispose of the piece. So you've got, there's situations enough where you're not getting feedback. But when there's opportunity to get feedback and you're not asking for it as a mailer, it drives me crazy. It's like, why would you send a piece to this, on the same journey as other pieces whose journeys ended in failure? Hey, I like Mark's example. Hey, last time we went to our favorite restaurant, we saw that it was torn down and turned into a parking lot. I want that dinner again. Let's go to that same address and see if I get a different result. Not,
Not
learn.
likely.
Yeah.
So Mark, what else can mailers do to better identify and fix addresses? And we've heard like there's data gathering from many places and many points along the way. How can people plan better for future success and efficiency with mail?
And this goes back to our friend Mr. Lynn, put this up in his question about getting and using the feedback. We talked about all of those scans. What the Postal Service does is that when there is a problem encountered on the journey, they record that. And what they do is instead of you having to wait and then wait for that piece to come all the way back, with the little yellow sticky, or as Adam pointed out, if it's a direct marketing mail piece, it probably got destroyed unless you're paying extra. There's an easier way to get it. The Postal Service has something called address change service that anytime any of those errors that we pointed out get recorded, it sends you that information back electronically. ACS. And the amazing thing about ACS, which is obviously very frustrating, is that the Postal Service charges nothing. Nothing. If you use full service IMB, you pay nothing for ACS. It's free to get this information back electronically. Why people aren't doing it, I don't understand. Now, actually, I do understand. It can be a challenge for certain people to use that information. That's why you often might find some type of partners to help you. But there are many ways to get around it. People should be using ACS to get that information electronically, even before the return mail piece comes back. And
So we
that's
have
the other.
oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, I saw the question, but I've got one more thing to talk about ACS, Lois. Sorry. But the other thing about ACS, while marketing mail gets destroyed, first class mail, the default is for it to be returned, right? If it hasn't been forwarded. If you use ACS as a first class mailer, you can then use USPS secure destruction, which means the Postal Service will send that mail piece to a secure facility, account for it. They will scan the piece and let you know that they destroyed it. So they have physically destroyed the piece securely, which you no longer have to pay to do. Lois, in our business, when we go and look at return mail, handling that physical piece is expensive because it has to be manually sorted and then generally opened and then looked up. And then it might have generated a phone call. So that one physical mail piece could cost you $8.
8 to 10
Why
on average from some of the current research when you look at the call center, and it's dirty and no one wants to do it.
Well,
They
that's
try to
the other
hide it
part.
in the back of the dock.
Oh, well, we did some work for a client a few years ago, and they said I talked to the senior manager. She's like, oh, we don't have any return mail. And then I followed the return mail piece, and it all went into this very large gray dumpster.
Mm.
Right. There was lots of return mail, except nobody was processing it. So if you use ACS, you can use the secure destruction. And if you are in healthcare or you are in any regulated industry, this really ensures that the information is being kept secure. And that's another good reason for doing that.
Yeah, it reduces the number of handling steps where something could go wrong. And also with the ACS, because it's it's triggered right from when the USPS detects it and just detects what to do with the piece. You'll get those ACS records in 1 to 2 days, depending on which system you're getting it through. But it's always a case of from the time it's known, you're getting it in days, as opposed to the physical mail piece, which has to get relabeled, then re-entered into the system, then resorted as a single piece and sorted throughout the US. So you're literally into several days, and in some cases even weeks, to getting the physical piece back. So you are able to take action a lot sooner.
And for those of you who don't know who Adam really is, in addition to working for Gray Hair, on the Mailers Technical Advisory Committee, Adam leads the address management group. And every quarter, it's something I look forward to because it's one report I really trust because it's Adam's numbers is, where are we on bad addresses? Where are we on ACS? But then also, have we been able to direct more mail to secure destruction? It's important information.
And it's amazing, Mark, how many times we've heard from clients that they did not know secure destruction existed.
Absolutely.
It's like a best kept secret. So can you both comment on the question from George on your thoughts on using proprietary change of address, PCOA, to update addresses in addition to ACS?
Adam, do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first. There's definitely
Okay.
value to PCOAs because we know not everybody files a change of address with the USPS. It just happens for a wide variety of reasons and misconceptions. I remember one of my first National Postal Forums, a person said, well, I updated my address with the DMV, so I've filed my change of address. Like, no, you didn't. They're not connected. And statistically, if you hear the numbers, people will say anywhere from 20% to 40% don't file a change of address with the USPS. Well, the reason for the 40% a lot of times is because every member of the family didn't. Just the one person filed it as a family code. So they saying, oh, the others didn't. Well, that's like the 40%. When you factor like, well, no, they filed for the entire family, it's more like 20% don't file a change of address for whatever reason. And obviously, we know this. Mark talked about it. One of the problems that the USPS reports is MLNAs, move left, no address. Post office knows they moved, and no one has filed a change of address with them. So it's out there. So PCOAs can definitely be useful because I'm like, I didn't tell the post office or whatnot, but I updated this magazine subscription or I updated, these other sources. PCOAs can also sometimes be of value in enhancing your address. So maybe through the post office, yeah, I got a new address, but it's missing an apartment number or something because they didn't file it right. Sometimes the PCOA data can also update that information. Additionally, I got a lot of additionally, it's not going forever. In handling the mail piece, the USPS's change of address data only goes back 18 months. Through NCOALink, depending on who you're using, you're either going to go against the 18-month data again or potentially 48-month data. The PCOAs, a lot of them go back many, many years. We've got some data going back to 2006. And so if you're in, this came up with an insurance company where it's like, okay, well, yeah, we've been maintaining our clients' addresses. Yeah. What about the beneficiary addresses? Oh, yeah, we haven't looked at those ever. We need something that can go way back in time. You have to go to a PCOA to get further back information.
So can you comment on how do people access their ACS reports?
Can I add on to before we go to ACS reports, Lois? I'm sorry, but I just want to make sure. So I'm a big believer in PCOAs. You just have to check with your legal department on how you use them. NCOALink is created by the United States Postal Service. That is an arm of the United States government. So this is the government saying that this person moved. That is a different level of authority. And we love Gray Hair, and I trust Gray Hair. But if Gray Hair tells me that they've moved, there may be more steps I need to take legally before I make any changes. So it's a really good source. I'm with Adam on everything Adam said. I just want to throw in a little thing there. Make sure you check with legal on how you use that data.
Yeah, that's a great example because also with NCOA, the USPS has multiple steps they do to validate and confirm that
Mhm.
this is valid, this is complete, it is good. And so that's why a lot of companies will trust, and the government puts it in the regulations. You can use the new address if you got it from the USPS.
Right.
But a great place for also PCOAs is, oh, I got the piece back and it was MLNA. The USPS doesn't have a new address. Like, okay, I need to go to something else. So it can be a good source of, when the USPS's tools aren't going to help you, next step. Yeah. All right, what was this question?
So the question is, how do you get access to the ACS reports? Do I have to go to the business customer gateway, or will they be automatically sent?
Automatically sent. You over the years, I'm gonna give you a little background and then tell you what to do. Over the years, ACS has evolved. It's been made better and better, new variations. So there's multiple variations of ACS. And then the USPS worked with the industry. We came up with a standardized format. So no matter which variation of ACS you're using, you can get the results in a single format through a single source. And it actually is called single source ACS. It's not a new version of ACS, it's a format. Those files you set up, the USPS posts them every day to their EPF site. You can automate the downloading of those files and put them right into your processes to start whatever your logic is for the various results. So yes, it can be automated.
And please convince your IT teams to do the integration and take those good addresses from those ACS reports. Mark and I are the biggest cheerleaders for that. So what are your final thoughts on improving address mechanics based on what we've shared and what you're seeing with customers? Mark?
So I'm going to start going back to when I got my driver's license, which was a long, long, long time ago. And my
Studebaker?
parent, so oh
Sorry.
boy, so we don't like Adam anymore. Can I can mute him, right? And my family actually used a gentleman mechanic called Dr. Tune Up. We make house calls. So he had a van and he would come to our house to do oil changes, mild tune-ups, all of that. And when I got my license, my mother, who Lois, would be the smarter one in my family, said, "You're going to spend some time with Bruce." And she paid him extra so that I could bother him. And he taught me the way around my car. And he said, this is what you need to call me for, but this is what you need to do all the time, right? So monthly, weekly, daily. Fantastic. 10 years later, when I'm the supervisor of a mail center, my mother again introduced me to a gentleman who ran a pre-sort house. And he said, the first thing you need to do is know your mail. And you never stop learning about your mail. So you look at your mail on a regular basis. You look at your addresses on a regular basis. You are never done. The one thing about address management is you are never done. So just as you're never done taking care of your car, you're never done taking care of your addresses.
That's a good point, Mark. And for most of our clients, they wish it was one and done. And Adam, to your point, imagine if insurance companies were really smart about double checking beneficiary information. Like, while people were still alive and had the addresses of those beneficiaries, imagine what that would do to the insurance industry. That would be amazing. What are some of your final thoughts or other wisdom that you can share with the attendees today?
One of the things I always like to remind people are my number one rule when it comes to address quality, oddly enough, is nothing's 100%. There are too many variations. Things are always changing. New data is becoming available. So, even if you are at truly best practices processes for your operation just even 2 or 3 years ago, you're not now. So my advice though is, like I said, Mark said it, it's constant. You're always working at it, but don't try and fix it all at once. it's not, you can't come up with a perfect. Take it in steps, one piece at a time. Start with a self-evaluation, like Mark said. Figure out what issues you have that you are actually having. And then start with the easy and obvious ones. Make sure you got air in the tires and the right gas for your car. Then see what's next. But don't forget to figure out what caused the problem that you're seeing. Because if you don't address what was the cause of the problem, you're going to have the same problem over and over and over again. For many businesses, some really great opportunities actually exist now at the point of data entry to not only make sure that you're getting a good address, but it is the right type of address for your business need. It's kind of like the oil filter. Uh, it works to keep the bad particles from getting into your engine and causing bigger issues. But even the oil filter needs to be monitored and maintained properly over time. Same with your data entry. Because again, new data comes available. Hey, we can now check for this issue now. We can make it work better. And remember, while there are some general solutions and best practices, they may not always be the right solution for you. I had my first car had an interesting characteristic. Obviously, it was a car my parents handed down to my brother, but then got handed down to me because I was driving it in high school. So it's like you get in the car, you turn it on, and the people in the car go, "Hey, there's no music. Turn on the radio." And you go, "The radio is on." "Oh, turn the volume up." You turn the volume up. "Oh, your radio is broken." Okay, 99.999% of the time, what's needed? You need to change out the radio, get it fixed. Not in my car. In my car, the first diagnostic was, is there someone sitting in the passenger back seat? Because there was a loose wire connection. If someone sat in just the right spot, the radio would go off. So we could have paid a lot of money and gotten it rewired. It's like, no, we're going the cheap solution. Can you scoot over 2 inches? And the music's on. So it's finding the right issue, finding the right solution. I'll say at grayhairsoftware.com, we have a number of articles, case studies, presentations on this and other topics. You can also reach out to Mark, Lois, myself, or Gray Hair in general at engage@grayhairsoftware.com to ask questions, start a conversation with somebody. Just be curious. And if you need some in-depth training on topics, there are people and services out there that do that. We help businesses evaluate their operations and their opportunities. And when you fix something, there's the next question is obvious. Okay, what can we help you solve next? There's always going to be something, a new opportunity. And I see we have another question.
Yes, we do.
This is actually a comment from Frank that the perception is that UAA mail is the Postal Service's problem, but it causes higher rates since the Postal Service has to pass that back in rate increases and lost postage handling and customer dissatisfaction. And in fact, there is currently a case before the Postal Regulatory Commission about how the Postal Service is going to account for UAA mail. So it's something that if you don't think it impacts you, you're wrong.
So Mark, earlier you talked about carriers and some of the information that, they are kind of like first line of defense in knowing. And you mentioned one of the codes, and it could be that they're deceased. So does the U.S. Postal Service maintain a database of deceased, knowing that someone has died at a residence?
No, that's an excellent question. They do not. If deceased is on there, it means either somebody at the address and the resident wrote deceased on the mail piece and handed it back to the carrier. The Postal Service doesn't maintain, they don't validate it. A lot of time a change of address is put on file to direct that mail to the person who's overseeing the estate. Perfect example, when my parents passed away, that's the first thing I did. I went to the post office. My dad was a clerk, so don't think I'm being morose here. It literally is what he told me to do. Is I went to the Postal Service the next day and filed a change of address. And fortunately, they knew who I was because my father worked there before. So it is something that they don't know. Now there are, as in with proprietary change of address databases, there are other databases that you can get that information from, but not the USPS.
Any other tactics to share with our audience today?
I would say just be curious. If go see what, one of the funniest things, and my coworkers tease me about this. We go on a tour of somebody's facility and we're going through and, oh, here's this, here's this, here's this. All of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, where'd Adam go? It's like, because I saw a pile of return mail and I'm over there looking through it. It's like, go find it, look through it, see what kind of issues there are.
So you are brothers from a separate mother, because Mark
Yeah.
does the same thing.
Adam and I had a bus ride and we spent 30 minutes just talking about scanning.
Actually, the really funny part is this poor lady asked one simple question and it just set us going.
As I said, you have had two of the best industry and address mechanics sharing their wisdom, insights, and strategies, as well as postal information to help you with your journey and make sure your mail gets to its destination. Thank you for attending today's webinar. We will send out a replay link, which you can share with your colleagues and friends. And we wish you every success in finding the best mechanics for your address management. Thank you.